Well, the annual Pacific Islands Forum kicks off in the Cook Islands capital, Raratonga, tomorrow.
Securing new economic partnerships, international relations and climate change are all on the agenda. But leaders do remain divided on several key issues. Joining us now is Tess Cain, project lead of the Pacific Policy at the Griffith Asia Institute. I'll spit it out, Tess. Morning to you. Thanks for joining us. So the 52nd meeting of this group, as I mentioned, there are some common goals and some differences. Let's start with the common goals. What will be the main thrust, do you think?
Good morning, Lorna. Well, as you say, there's some key things that the leaders will be considering during this meeting. We are in the pre-COP season, so obviously what's coming up at COP28 is very much front of mind for leaders, and particularly around the very fractious and quite problematic progress of the loss and damage mechanism, which is really that's the whole point of COP28. If there is no agreement as to an appropriate mechanism for that, then that meeting's going to be quite damaged, I think, in terms of its impact. And we know that Pacific leaders have been playing really strong roles in all forms of global climate diplomacy, but in particular in relation to loss and damage. And another key issue for the leaders is to put in place or to get started on a plan for the implementation of the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, which they endorsed at last year's meeting in Fiji. This year, we expect them to take on board and take receipt of the plan for implementation of that strategy and get the ball rolling on that. OK,
that's the aims. What about the differences then? I note that the PNG PM and the Solomon Islands PM, they're not attending, are they?
They're not. Prime Minister Sogavare from Solomon Islands has, unsurprisingly, I think, said that he wants to remain in Honiara as the final preparations for the Pacific Games come into place. So he'll be there overseeing that. It's a very important programme to him, a very important project for him personally as well as politically. I'm not quite sure what the reasons for James Marape's non-attendance are. He has received that in the PNG press and on social media. There has been some concerns and criticisms expressed about the amount of international travel he's been doing. So maybe he's responding to that.
So, as we've just been mentioning, the Australian Prime Minister is in China. What will the Pacific leaders hope that that visit means for them?
Well, I think what the Pacific leaders are hoping for from all of their development partners, so Australia is a member of the forum. China is what's called a forum dialogue partner, so it's not a member, but, you know, sits in the kind of outer circle, if you like, has very strong relationships in the region. What Pacific leaders are looking for is increased cooperation and collaboration among their partners. They're voicing their concerns that wherever there's any kind of geostrategic competition, it puts extra costs on them. It makes their transaction costs a lot higher in terms of managing a multiplicity of relationships. So generally across the Pacific, the position is that we are friends to all and enemies to none. And numerous Pacific leaders have expressed that and said that that is what they want. But they recognise that the geostrategic tempo has changed and is continuing to change. And they're much more aware than maybe they were even 10 years ago, as to how these outside relationships, whether it's US-China, Australia-China, they all have an impact on their conversations and what matters for them in the region.
Tess, I noticed that the Pacific Elders' voice says it's concerned whether the PIF Forum addresses the fact that Australia is one of the world's biggest fossil fuel exporters, and you've mentioned climate change. I mean, how far do any of the leaders push on that and say, well, come on, Australia, you've got to do your bit in this?
We heard from Ralph Regenvanu, who's Vanuatu's climate change minister, yesterday, since the Pacific Elders' Voice statement came out, that essentially the grace period that Albanese had has come to an end, and that the Pacific leaders are looking for increased ambition on the part of Australia when it comes to domestic policy, and that includes the export of fossil fuels. There has been a push for Australia to sign the Port Vila Call, which is for a more rapid transition away from fossil fuels. I don't know that Prime Minister Albanese can go that far, but I certainly think that the Pacific Island leaders are going to want something meaningful from Australia. We've heard concerns expressed that Australia hasn't been as supportive at the loss and damage talks as they might otherwise be. So I think Prime Minister Albanese needs to go with something to offer that the Pacific can point to and say, yes, we're happy that this demonstrates that you really are on the team. Pacific Elders' Voice, are pushing for, and they reflect other concerns elsewhere from civil society, that rather than a communique that has been maybe watered down in order to accommodate Australia, maybe what's needed is a stronger communique with a statement that says Australia is not a signatory to it. Now, that would be a big step for the Pacific Islands Forum leaders meeting, where consensus decision making is the preferred way of dealing with things. But I think it is important to realise that these sorts of conversations are going on the sidelines, and they will filter into what the leaders decide when they're in retreat.
Very interesting. Tess Newton-Cain, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that Pacific Island Forum kicking off tomorrow in the Cook Islands.